After starting the season 10-1, the Philadelphia Eagles collapsed down the stretch. The question is, where do they go from here? Volleyball is blowing up, and two-time national champion Asjia O'Neal is getting ready for her pro career. She'll tell us what to expect from the new Pro Volleyball Federation. And finally, we want to talk some hockey. So who better to bring on than our friend Pete Blackburn? Pete gives us his top 5 players in the world right now. That and more, next on The Rally.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Rally. Brooke Fletcher here alongside Joshua Perry, and we have our NHL insider and co-host of the podcast, White Chaos, Pete Blackburn, in studio with us. Pete, always great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You as excited today as you were yesterday?
Yeah, even more excited.
I love that.
That's right. I'm establishing my roots here.
It is nice because I feel like we don't talk a lot of hockey here, so it's nice to have our hockey expert to get our hockey fix in this week. And we have a lot to get to when it comes to the world of hockey. But first, we have to start about some of the games that we saw over the weekend, specifically last night. So let's get right to those with today's big trends. Listen, it's hard to believe that the Eagles were in a Super Bowl just a year ago, and it's even harder to believe that just 2 months ago they were sitting atop of the conference with a 10-1 record. And last night, they just reached rock bottom, losing to the Buccaneers in their wild card game. Joshua, what happened?
I can't tell you. I think that's probably the craziest part about this collapse here. You mentioned that they were #1 team in the NFC. 11, 12 weeks into the season, whatever the case was, wheels absolutely fall off. And I don't think any of us can identify what on the field exactly it was. Jalen Hurts, we know he was banged up. He didn't protect the football all that well. We knew that was a little bit of an issue. Defensively, I don't think that they got the stops that they needed. Secondary had some problems, right? We knew that was an issue. But to completely collapse the way that they did, I don't think anybody could have anticipated it. It's a very talented team, right? They paid their quarterback in the offseason because they felt like he was the guy. They put weapons around him. Devontae Smith, I mean, that guy's balling. Wish they had Brown out there, didn't know where he was. And defensively, they had a good mix to me of super veteran guys that provided some leadership, along with some younger guys, especially in that front, that could be game changers. And the idea that they looked terrible and like they didn't know how to play football, nor did they want to play football, is really troubling to me. And I don't know exactly how they address that this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I heard in this area yesterday that one of the people in the office doesn't trust Baker Mayfield to get out of bed in the morning, never mind win a playoff game. And we saw him look like a first ballot Hall of Famer against this Eagles defense. He played about as well as you possibly could have imagined Baker Mayfield playing. Made it look too easy against this Eagles defense. And obviously you look at the stretch run for Philadelphia and the way that they finished this season. It is very, very difficult to head into this offseason with a good taste in your mouth if you're an Eagles fan, given how much they squandered for what they kind of built in the front half of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, disconnected is probably the best word just to describe like what they looked like last night, and they've lost 6 of their last 7 games here. And it just makes you wonder what is happening, because even on the sidelines, you saw Dallas Goedert and him and Jalen Hurts, they were going at it, and obviously there's some frustration there because maybe something wasn't working on that offense. But then you mentioned A.J. Brown. We don't know where he has been. Jason Kelce announced that he is going to be retiring. You know, he is the heart and soul, besides Jalen Hurts, of that team here. And so it makes you wonder, like, how can they collapse this quickly and just going from a Super Bowl contender to just being one of the most concerning teams in the NFL?
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because, players, of course, get asked a question about coaching in the post-game, and they want people want to know their commentary about how they feel about their coach, their confidence level. And people look at Nick Sirianni in that locker room, and they say, he's the guy. It's not a Nick Sirianni issue. But I think you have to look at him and say, what can you do better to connect with your team? I think you would have to take inventory of that locker room and say, where were our leadership deficits? And I talked about this thing yesterday, the idea that when you get off to a 10-1 start, there are a lot of conversations that you have the ability to avoid because you're winning. But then when you lose 6 of 7, the conversation's all smack you in the face at once. And it's probably a little bit too much to address all at that time, and it's way too far gone. And I think that's what a lot of their season was. And so now starting in the offseason with the front office and the coaching staff, they have to address conversations that weren't had. And then when you bring the players back in for OTAs, you got to be real honest with them the whole offseason about what they want to be. Because you can tell them, listen, we could be that team that appeared in the Super Bowl and a team that started off 10-1, or we could be the team that lost 6-7 to end the year and look terrible and like we didn't know how to play football.
I think Nick Sirianni's ego kind of got heat checked this season too,
did.
because you look at some of the clips that he had in terms of like the cocky nod at the camera, talking trash to Chiefs fans after that game. It's like you can give that stuff out and be the cocky head coach and have that sort of ego. And I think it's not necessarily bad for the game. It's good for the theater. But when you flame out like this against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're going to hear it. You have to back it up.
There was even a clip in, just going back to what you were saying, that where Nick Sirianni, I forgot which team it was, but he kind of was motioning to the opposing team after they were beating them, and Jalen Hurts was like, "No, man, don't do that." The fact that your quarterback is sitting there telling you, "Hey, kind of cool it," just kind of makes you wonder, where the respect is for Nick Sirianni in the locker room there. And is that the person that you have to look to? Obviously, like Jalen Hurts is that leader, but you have to look at the head coach, and makes you wonder how hot his seat is coming into next season.
Everybody loves an edgy coach until they start losing games, right? Nobody talked about him being edgy a year ago. Nobody talked about him being edgy when they got off to a 10-1 start. Like, everybody loves an edgy coach until you don't win.
Yeah.
So.
And it says a lot about your character on how you respond when you guys are facing that adversity there. But listen, props to the Bucs there. They're going to be taking on the Lions this Sunday, moving on to the next round here. But the Eagles, they're heading home. But the Bills, they are moving to the next round after over a 27-hour delay. Buffalo took down the Steelers. Now they move on to host the Chiefs at home. Looks like the snow didn't slow them down one bit, JP.
No, Josh Allen, first and foremost, very efficient game, 203 yards to the air, but he did it on 70% completion. Didn't turn the football over. That's one thing that we love to track when we talk about Josh Allen. So if he can play clean football in the playoffs, of course, they're going to have a really good chance to win football games. The other thing that happened is you're going up against a Pittsburgh Steelers team that, give them all the credit in the world for making it to the playoffs, because I thought they had no shot. I said before the season started that this would be the year that Mike Tomlin was under 500. I hated the quarterback position. I did not think their offensive weapons were going to be able to do enough to elevate it. Thought they were going to be good defensively. It's hard to win just on defense the way football's played right now. And Pittsburgh just gave him the football, right? Like, I mean, they were scoring chances. He's throwing interception in the end zone. It'll kill you, especially in a game like that. So the idea that the Pittsburgh Steelers were just not a good enough team, I think, stands out to me. Flip it on the other side, though, when we talk about the Bills. We mentioned this weeks ago. They're, to me, the hottest team in the NFL. Like, they have put it together. And maybe it's Joe Brady calling plays. Maybe it's the idea that Josh Allen got into that, what do you like to say, the high positive mindset, low positive, whatever the hell he was saying. He got the mentality rocking and rolling, and they're playing solid ball because of it.
Yeah, I'm curious where the confidence level is for Bills fans and the Bills themselves at this point, because, I mean, like you mentioned, things did turn around with the coordinator situation, but you also look at the fact that it was the Steelers who didn't have the highest of expectations. They put the ball on the ground 2 times, arguably 3, if you want to talk about the other one that didn't go back to Buffalo. And I just think that it was not a sweat-free game for Buffalo fans. And going up against the Steelers, I don't know where the confidence level is or should be after that game.
Well, they're going to need all the confidence going into the matchup next week, where they are going to be hosting the Chiefs. This has been one of the most exciting matchups if you take a look at years past here. But this time, things are a little different, working in the Bills' favor, because they get to host Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs here, JP.
Yes, it's a team that you beat already, and it's a team that you get to play at home. And I think the Chiefs are a team that they know exactly who they want to be in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes also does not play in playoff games on the road unless it's Super Bowl, right, in neutral site. So this is going to be uncharted territory for him. I think if you're Buffalo, you have to control all of the things that are within your control as a team. Again, I mentioned what they did in terms of protecting the football offensively. That's going to have to come through. I also look at Kansas City as a team that has often made enough mistakes to keep football teams in the game this year. And so if you're Buffalo, I think you can lean on what you saw here and say, okay, is it because Pittsburgh put the ball on the ground, or did we force them to put the ball on the ground, and start to build that mentality in there that if we play clean football and we allow them to make mistakes like they've done all year long, this is a football game that we should win. Now, if Buffalo wants to get into the we'll make mistakes too game, I'm not exactly sure they got enough in the tank.
Yeah, and I don't think you can afford making those mistakes going up against Kansas City, where you can't underestimate that team despite some of their struggles that they went through in the regular season. They know how to turn it on in the postseason, and that is why they are your reigning Super Bowl champs here. But going back to the Bills here, and Patrick Mahomes, he has not played in a playoff game away. This will be his first here. And not only do you have to play in a tough environment, but you are surrounded by Bills Mafia, and they were showing what they were capable of. Even last night, they were making that did not stop them. All the snow, they still came out to support their teams. They were throwing snowballs out on the field. I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but they didn't care.
It's better than the other stuff they like to throw on the field.
That's true.
Fair,
You know what I'm saying?
There's no rules in Bills Mafia, that's for sure.
There's some damn fools.
You can talk about home field advantage for Buffalo all you want, and I know that it is a good atmosphere. The Bills have some of the best fans in football, but you're also talking about a Kansas City team that just played in some of the worst conditions that you could possibly imagine. So this is, depending on what the conditions are next week in Buffalo, but it has to be a step in the right direction if you're the Chiefs, because you'll take anything other than what you just played in.
Yeah, it can't get worse. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think, the Chiefs, they proved that they have the mental toughness to overcome those sort of outliers there. But while the wild card postseason playoff games are going on here, there's also the coaching carousel across the NFL. And one of the most recent interviews surrounds Bill Belichick getting an interview with the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons, they came out and said that they interviewed the former Patriots head coach. So this is the first known one for Bill Belichick here. So how do you like this fit, JP, if he does decide to go to Atlanta?
It's a little bit of a tough one for me, simply because of the quarterback situation. And I think a lot of people, when they judge Bill Belichick in his ability to have success in the next job that he takes, it's either you believe in everything that happened before the last basically half decade, or you're looking at the last half decade as, okay, well, this is what it's going to be, right? Because you're looking at a tenure with veteran quarterback, and you were able to put together some really good teams. That was at a point where he was identifying a lot of diamonds in the rough, and he was getting guys on defense to take deals that they usually wouldn't take. He was shipping guys out that folks didn't think he would ship out, bringing other dudes in, ended up being really good teams. Or the last handful of years where it's like, okay, well, you had an older veteran quarterback who was way past his prime, banged up, didn't look very good. Then you did the young quarterback thing, didn't look very good. Maybe the Patriot way feels a little bit exhausted to the new age of players. And so the one thing that you can bet on with Bill Belichick is he's going to bring a level of attention to detail and discipline to an organization that I think a lot of people need, because people lack it to the level that he had it. But can he maximize what Atlanta has in terms of personnel? That would be one of the bigger questions to ask.
My big takeaway from this, and I would love to sit in on this meeting, because in my opinion, Bill Belichick should be interviewing the Atlanta Falcons and not vice versa. Bill Belichick should have that job if he wants that job. And as a Texas fan, my question is, what would this mean for Bijan Robinson? Obviously, they invested quite a bit in him. Arthur Smith did not utilize Bijan Robinson. No. It drove me insane. Arthur Smith did not utilize some of the incredible talent that the Falcons had, period. Kyle Pitts as well.
Right.
That's my big question. But if you're Belichick, I think the number one thing at the top of that list, if he was to interview the Falcons, is what is your plan for the quarterback position? Because I just came from New England. I just had to deal with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, and it cost me my job after 20-plus years of dominance in New England.
But
so
those
the quarterback,
were his guys,
you cannot win without a good quarterback in this league. And seeing what the Atlanta Falcons have in terms of skill players without a quarterback drives me insane.
But the part about it was those were his guys, though.
Yeah.
You're right. He put that roster together. So
that's what I think people are looking at, both of those things, because I agree with you. If you get him a guy who can go out there and ball a little bit, I'm like, hey, let's get Bill out here.
Put a quarterback in Atlanta, and they're probably one of the most fun teams to watch on offense.
And I feel like this is not necessarily the longest term decision if you're hiring Bill either. It's not like this dude's a young dude, right? You're not getting a ton of years out of him. And so it feels like you got to strike while the iron's hot.
Well, and with that, he wants the quick results there. So it would make, regardless of which team he goes to, he'd probably want more control, right? He wanted, a lot more say than maybe he would in other organizations. But one thing that Atlanta has lacked for a really long time, and growing up in Atlanta, is identity. They don't know who they are, what they are. And so one thing that Bill Belichick,
I think we know what they are. They're losers.
Well, that's one thing that we do know. Yes, but as far as who they are as an identity, Bill Belichick, the Belichick way, the Patriots way might be old school, but at least he knows who he is as a coach and how he wants to run a team. Obviously, he's going to have to adapt to the new, type of football there. We're coaching these young guys, but I think that is one thing that he brings to the table, and having an experienced head coach, because you were taking a look at some of the guys that they had interviewed already. Bill Belichick clearly has the better resume.
Right. No, I mean, I agree with you in terms of what he can bring from let's get the foundation, the framework around the organization. It's just the idea of, is his coaching approach still valid, or is it a little bit played? Yeah.
All right. Well, today's poll, everybody, who will win the NFC? We got some great contenders down there right now. It looks like the Niners there. No surprise in the lead. Get the QR code, go to playtherally.com. We're going to talk more NFL later on the show. Also, we're going to talk some tennis because the Australian Open is in full swing. So get it, guys? Because swinging, I get it. See what I did there?
You shouldn't do that again.
Okay. I'll just see myself out. Anyways, Dani K, she's going to stop by to update us on which Americans we need to watch in round 2. Professional volleyball is coming to Columbus, and Joshua Perry can't wait. So we'll talk to first overall pick Asjia O'Neal ahead of her inaugural season. And Mike Tomlin didn't have the patience to deal with the media last night. You can understand why. So we're going to read more into it next on The Rally. Round 2 of the Australian Open is underway, and here's a look at how the ranked American men fared in the first round. Now, all 5 of them advanced, including Taylor Fritz. So for a look at what to expect tonight, let's toss it to our girl, Dani K.
5 of the top 6 American men are in action down under tonight, so lots to be excited about for the red, white, and blue. Taylor Fritz suffered a bit of a scare there in the first round. He's going to have to play better if he wants to get past Hugo Gaston, who's a solid player, but Taylor Fritz definitely the better one. And I also think that Frances Tiafoe should be fine in his matchup against Machek. Actually, a lot of people think that this is going to be a tighter match. I think Tiafoe's experience gets him in to the next round with little to no issue whatsoever. Now, Ben Shelton, remember, he burst on the scene last year at the Australian Open, making it all the way to the quarterfinals in his debut down under. And he's got a pretty favorable draw here for this one. He's playing an Australian. As long as he stays focused, despite the crowd backing the other player, he should be fine as well. Now, here's where I get a little worried. Chris Eubanks is going up against Andrei Rublev. Eubanks was outstanding in his first round, absolutely smashed Taro Daniel. But Andrei Rublev has become a mainstay in the top 5 in the world. I think he's just going to have a little bit too much for Eubanks. I think that Eubanks' trip here down under ends in this round. And then taking a look at Sebi Korda. If that last name sounds familiar to you, that's because his sister Nelly Korda is in top 4 in the world in LPGA. Very talented family. Sebi Korda looked a little shaky in that first round. He has a tough competitor against Quinton Halys in this one. I do think if he stays focused, he should be fine. So I'm looking at about 4 of those 5 Americans that are in action tonight on the men's side to advance to the next round. So lots to look forward to in the red, white, and blue on the men's side. We'll talk about the women a little bit later on.
Good stuff, Dani K. There's a lot of excitement surrounding the Americans in the Australian Open, but listen, we love teams supporting other teams in the same city, right? And that's what the Sabres did Monday night to cheer on the Bills. After the Sabres beat the Sharks in a day game, they decided to throw little watch parties to support them. So here is the receipt, guys. This is what we got. 6 large cheese pizzas, 6 large pepperoni, 6 large Hawaiian, that's concerning, 4 buckets of wings consisting of mild, medium, and barbecue. There's a lot of Hawaiian pizza for my liking, but that's neither here nor there.
Come on, we're not getting into this, right?
3 large Hawaiian?
Pineapple on pizza is tremendous.
I think it's good too.
Yeah,
it's not something it's not like a go-to, but it's definitely a good change-up.
People who say like fruit doesn't belong on pizza, guess what tomato is? It's a fruit.
Good. You know
it's
what?
one of the biggest ingredients of a pizza.
Let me high five.
I didn't say that. I just
That's
don't
pretty
think
damn
pineapple belongs on a pizza.
I mean, so you've never had cheese and fruit?
I have had cheese and fruit, and I'm not saying that you can't put fruit on a pizza, but pineapple and ham and just 3 like large pizzas, that means that's a lot of people that want Hawaiian.
That you can't put pineapple on the pizza. You can't.
Yeah,
put fruit
specifically
on the pizza.
pineapple. I don't like pineapple on the pizza.
You're tripping.
That's not all fruit. You're tripping.
Tripping.
I love it.
I'm going to move on with this segment.
This segment is
all right, it got us
killing it
thinking,
right
though, because I don't agree that we should have pineapple pizza at the party here,
Right.
but what do you think would be the ideal food to have?
I think what they ordered is good, but it's like too heavy. You need the smaller, less filling kind of picky food.
Yeah.
A football game is a long game, but that being said, they just played a 60-minute hockey game, so like they've got some room.
They're fueling.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to make an edit personally, I see that they got the buckets of wings, and you got the mild, you got the medium, little barbecue. It's all fine. You need to find a spot that's got some lemon pepper, dry rub. Go ahead and do the lemon pepper wings, all flats, extra crispy, if you know it.
Also a little bit cowardly that there's not a hot wing on that list. And we're talking about barbecue wings. I'm not gonna like knock barbecue wings.
I am.
Barbecue's good.
It's probably a lower end wing, especially from a city from Buffalo. You have to have a hot wing in there.
Okay, I can support that. I think you need some nachos.
You love a nacho.
I do. I really do. Just have some good nachos. Pulled pork nachos, maybe. You mentioned maybe the veggie tray. That would be a nice option. Get your greens in.
Yeah, the veggie tray I think is important here. We had this discussion earlier, but you got all these heavy foods, a lot of cheese, you got some meat you're trying to process through your system. Well, what helps with that? A little fiber, some roughage, right? So throw down the veggies and help keep everything moving along as the evening goes.
Yeah, I mean, number 1 on that list is probably the most important, right? Beers.
Of course.
If you're gonna do pizza and a ton of wings, you've gotta wash it down with beers.
Yeah.
But I agree, like the veggie tray, you can say whatever you want about like veggies at a party. It's not manly, whatever. Like a nice carrot stick or a celery with the wings is crucial.
Goes a long way.
Yeah.
And then we had the soft pretzels there.
Strong.
Just switch it up with some cheese dip, maybe.
A little mustard.
Or mustard.
Yeah.
I like that, Joshua. Look, we agree on something.
Yeah.
Look at us. We've come a long way. All right. Well, speaking of just supporting teams here, there's 2 teams in the building tonight that are going to need all the support that they can get because they're the 2 worst teams in the NHL, and that is the Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks. And you have the privilege, Pete, of going to watch that game.
I sure do.
How are you planning on just maximizing your experience just to make it a good one for you?
I mean, we just talked about it. Beers probably gonna happen. Sports betting, got some money on the Blackhawks tonight on the money line. So listen, these are the 2 worst teams in the NHL, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bad game. Sometimes quote-unquote bad hockey is still very entertaining hockey because it opens up a little bit more. So I'm not really worried about not being able to enjoy this game. Do I wish Connor Bedard was playing? Of course I do. But this is the Celebrini Bowl. One of these teams is probably going to have a great shot to draft Max Celebrini this summer. So, I'm excited about seeing these two teams, even if they're not in the best state right now.
Is this a better situation than maybe going to see the fifth and the sixth worst teams? Like you get to watch two terrible teams instead of two bad teams, but they're not the worst.
I always say, if you're a sports team, you want to finish tops or you want to finish in the back end because then you get the #1 pick. If you're a fan, you want to see the best teams or you want to see the worst teams because the bad teams are also entertaining in their ineptitude a lot of the time. So
you can put a positive spin on this. Joshua, what do you say about the Pistons?
They should be the worst losers in the history of losing. They should go all in on losing.
See?
They will be remembered.
Memorable, yes.
They will be remembered.
Exactly.
They're competing for something tonight.
They're the worst losers ever.
All right. We are done talking about hockey for now. Pete, we're not done actually. Pete, he's going to give us his 5 most entertaining players to watch in the NHL. That's coming up next. Welcome back to the Rally. Brooke Fletcher here alongside our NHL insider and co-host of the podcast, What Chaos, Pete Blackburn. He's in the studio this week just to talk some hockey. And I said before the break, we're not done yet. So, Pete, you got to walk me through who are some of the most entertaining players in the league?
Okay, so I picked 5 guys, and I apologize to any defensemen or goalies because they're not on this list. The top 5, all forwards. And we'll start here. Alexander Barkov, I'm a Patrice Bergeron guy. Broke my heart that he retired. This is probably as close as you're going to get to a perfect two-way player as a guy like Patrice Bergeron. Barkov has been unbelievable this year. He can do everything. He's got great hands. He can score. He's got unbelievable vision. But most importantly, he is probably the best defensive forward in the game today, and it's exciting to watch anywhere on the ice. Florida's outscoring opponents 32-14 with him at 5-on-5 this year, so he's been incredible. He's going to make Sam Reinhart a ton of money coming up this year. David Pastrnak, Bruins fan, maybe a bias pick, but David Pastrnak is one of the best players in the world. He is an electric winger, probably not the best defensive forward in the league, I'll just say that. But he is extremely creative with the puck. His vision's unbelievable, but obviously his shot is his calling card. He is electric. He can score from pretty much anywhere on the ice. And his shootout goals this year have been some of the most electric stuff that you will find in the NHL. So David Pastrnak earned his spot there. And then kind of a better version of David Pastrnak is Nikita Kucherov. He has been a monster this season, and he can do all the same things as Pastrnak. He does make it look a little bit smoother, and one thing that I will say about Kucherov that is also entertaining is he's a bit of a grump. He is able to mix it up. He's a little bit of a dirty player, which can be very entertaining. So I like Nikita Kucherov a lot. He's an unbelievable player who's kind of hitting his full ability this year. Number 2, probably my personal favorite guy in the NHL is Nathan MacKinnon, because he is unlike these two guys in the way that he doesn't necessarily make it look super smooth. He's one of the more violent guys. He plays hockey like he hates hockey. He shoots the puck like he hates the puck. He skates like he's angry at the ice. And so, I love this guy. He's electric. He is also putting together a potential Hart candidacy this year in how he's playing. He also has the clutch gene. He shows up time and time again for the Colorado Avalanche in overtime and when they need him most. And they're using him a ton this year, which is awesome to watch. And then number 1, this should not be a surprise, right? If you have seen Connor McDavid play the sport of hockey, you've seen any of the highlights, you know why he's number 1 on this list, because he is a human highlight reel. He is probably the most talented hockey player that has ever played the game. It seems like he's the guy that makes you think that there should be a league above the NHL because he's that good. So Connor McDavid, no surprise, the most entertaining player in the world. Must-see TV anytime he hits the ice.
Well, and he's impacting in a huge way. The Oilers, they've won 10 in a row now, going for their 11th.
They've been one of the best teams in hockey after being one of the worst teams in hockey to start the year. So the Oilers are electric for better or for worse.
Yeah, it helps when you got the best guy in the league on your squad. All right, coming up, we're going to talk some volleyball here because Asjia O'Neal, she is coming off 2 national championships at Texas, and now she's taking her talents to the pro level. She'll sit down with us coming up next. Welcome back to the rally. Joshua, let's talk some volleyball here. We are joined by a special guest, two-time national champion at Texas and first overall pick in the Pro Volleyball Federation, Asjia O'Neal. Asjia, great to see you. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing well. We appreciate you taking the time. Listen, we're approaching the first season for the Pro Volleyball Federation here. So what is your vision for this league?
Yeah, I really just want this league to take off. I think right now is a perfect time to have this league here. Women's volleyball is completely exploding right now, and people want to see it. They want to see it on television. They want to see it at the highest of levels. So PVF starting this year was just the perfect timing, and I'm so excited to be a part of it.
All right, so you were drafted by the Columbus Fury. You got the first game on the 25th there. Now you're coming off of your second straight title over there at Texas. About a month ago, you know, as athletes really value the offseason there, but it's a quick turnaround for you. So how are you handling this? Are you feeling a little bit of fatigue? What's your mindset going into this new season?
Yeah, I definitely gave myself about a week just to do nothing and relax at home, enjoy the holidays with my family, but then got right back into it. I just got to Columbus on Friday, so I spent some time at home doing strength and conditioning and just getting back into, you know, my playing shape. But it's so exciting. It's a new team, it's a new city, it's a new environment totally, so it really just rejuvenates you and gets you ready to get back out on the court.
Well, if you need any restaurant recommendations, Joshua is from Columbus, so he's your guy. He's got you covered on that end there. Columbus is a very underrated town. It's great.
I love it.
But listen, you have had such a successful career, but you've also faced a lot of adversity. You're going through multiple heart surgeries. So, you know, they say going through tough times, it makes you stronger. But Asjia, what kept you motivated to get through those hard times?
I would just say my love for the sport and my love for my teammates and the whole program that I had at Texas. It was such an enjoyable place with incredible people, and I didn't want to lose that. So I was always really focused on doing everything that I could to get back up on the court with my teammates. And just the whole staff and all the girls around me really pushed me and helped me get through all of my recovery and my rehab. So it was just a great environment to be in, having to go through an open heart surgery like that.
All right, Asjia, so your father is an NBA legend, Jermaine O'Neal, and he did an interview fairly recently, and one of the things that he said he was most proud of was the way that you set an example for your younger brother. He said, you know, you're the one who kind of carries the way that it's supposed to be done, kind of in the family lineage. How important has it been to you to kind of carry on that legacy there?
It's been really important for me. I chose my number because my dad was also number 7. So growing up seeing him succeed at the highest levels was super inspiring to me, especially once I got into volleyball and really started to take it seriously. And as my dad always says, my brother didn't really get to see his career. He's seen mine. So just try to give him that really good positive role model to look up to. And lately, he's 17 now, so lately he's started to want to talk to me and get my advice and hear about how I was able to be recruited and go to college and play at the highest levels. So it's been really fun to see how our lineages just continue to, you know, succeed and grow.
So I feel like all the best athletes have a good nickname. And the nickname you were given when you were at Texas was Slide Queen. What's the story behind that nickname?
So at Texas, I played the M1, which is the middle who has a setter front row of 2 of your 3 rotations. So that means I hit a lot behind. I hit a lot of slides. And when I got to college, my coach Jarrett told me that I needed to perfect that and that was going to be my thing. In high school, I ran it a little bit, but that was never really my focus. And once I got to Texas, it started to just work really well for me. And I began to be really efficient hitting the slide. So that just became my thing. That was like my bread and butter. Like Steph, you know, will hit threes, but my thing is a slide.
I like that. Well, you're the slide queen, and you're also the all-time leaders in blocks there at Texas. Not bad, I would say. So what feels better, I'm curious, a block or an ace?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say a block, I think. Aces are great, and they don't happen as frequently as blocks do, for me at least. I know in the championship match I had a lot. I had a career high, but I really enjoy blocking, and I think with my position, like, that's my main role, and I really dove into that my last 2 years at school. So I would say blocks for sure.
All right, obviously in volleyball, you got to use your hands, right? And I like to keep long nails, but I would imagine how that would impact your game. And Asjia, you always have like perfectly manicured nails when you're playing. So does that give you an edge when it comes to a good block?
I would say it hurts me maybe more than helps me, because there's some balls that probably wouldn't touch my fingers if my nails weren't long, but sometimes I do get touches when I shouldn't. But I try to keep them relatively short, but they do always have to be done.
I would not do well.
Yeah,
in volleyball.
no, there's no shot. And I got a lot of respect for the young ladies who have their nails done because I understand how quickly that ball is moving.
Right.
And just, yeah, it's.
Break a lot of nails.
You could break a lot of nails. All right, we got one more question for you. A little volleyball, maybe basketball mashup there. We mentioned your dad. He made his name playing in Indiana. And the Pacers put up a full-length court in the Indianapolis airport. So if you're walking through the concourse and you see this basketball court there in the airport, what are you doing? You playing?
I saw this on Twitter actually, and I thought it was funny. I definitely would, just for a little second. You know, I'm not a hooper. Basketball is never my thing, but I would feel obligated if I'm walking through the airport and I see a court. I'm going to do something. So if there's a volleyball on a net, I would for sure do that. But maybe I'd do a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like I would have to get out there too.
Hard to resist, right?
It'd be difficult to resist. The thing that I would worry about is injuries at this point in my athletic career, but
no.
certainly still got that competitive spirit. But that's Asjia O'Neal, who's joining the Columbus Fury. First game coming up on the 25th. We really appreciate your time over here.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate y'all as well.
Let's take you back down under. See what I did there? I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. Okay, we gave you a look at the American men at the Australian Open. Now let's turn to the women. All the ranked individuals advanced to round 2, including Coco Gauff and Jessica Pegula. Former U.S. Open winner Sloane Stephens is also looking to get back on track. So let's bring in Dani Kaye for more on tonight's action.
I'm all about the Americans today in Australia. So let's get to the women's side. The top American female, that's Coco Gauff. She's actually taking on another American in Caroline Dolehide. Coco Gauff's just been playing with so much confidence since winning that maiden slam at the U.S. Open that I don't think she's going to have any issue here with Dolehide. That's not to downplay Dolehide's capabilities. She is a very strong player and continues to rise in the rankings. But I think Coco Gauff advances very comfortably here. And another American to keep your eye on is Amanda Anisimova, who's making her way back into tennis after taking a break for her mental health. She put on a showcase against Ludmila Samsonova in the first round. I actually think she just continues that momentum and dispatches Podoroska as well. So a couple of bright spots there for the Americans down under. Make sure you check out all the action because they're doing pretty well.
Thank you so much, Dani Kaye, with all the tennis insight here. But guys, we got to take you back to the NFL here because there were some players that really were on display over the weekend here. And those are two young guys in Jordan Love and CJ Stroud. If you take a look at their numbers, it's almost identical in what they were able to do in these games. It's pretty incredible. So who is having a more impressive run, JP, in your opinion?
I think I'd have to lean with the rookie here in CJ Stroud and understand the situation that he was in this year. I don't think anybody expected the Texans to be competitive, let alone win a game in the playoffs. CJ Stroud, quarterback with zero experience in the league, no time to learn from any veteran guys, comes in right away, and he's very successful. I would go as far as to say that he has elevated some guys who have been in this league for a little while. Nico Collins, not to take shots because I always thought he was a pretty good player going back to his days at Michigan. He was never a household name in the league. He's playing like one right now. Noah Brown, another one of those guys. I got to watch him when he was at Ohio State. Thought he was a pretty good player. He was a guy who was making more plays than he had ever made in his NFL career. Now, it's not to say that Jordan Love has not been really impressive, and I felt like this was something that he could get done because he had the opportunity to sit back and to learn behind a guy who we know is going into the Hall of Fame, and he did a lot to elevate what is a really young skill group around him. But watching a rookie come in and look like a vet, youngest guy to quarterback an NFL playoff win, like, come on, man.
We talk a lot about protecting the football and making sure you don't turn it over. And, you know, CJ Stroud is good at that. Don't get me wrong. But you look at Jordan Love, 1 interception in his last 9 games. Like, that is elite ball protection as a quarterback. And you also look at what he's been able to do just in terms of, like, he's almost putting together some perfect performances recently. And he's really, really impressing in, like, sometimes in like a Patrick Mahomes way where you're like, how does he find that guy? How does he get that throw off? It is just pure skill. And it's unbelievable.
And it was off to a rocky start, I would say, for Jordan Love there, where people were questioning him. But to also be able to overcome that, overcome the pressure and the expectations, when you have two of arguably the best quarterbacks in the league that were in front of you, and Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and it's like, all right, Jordan, don't screw this one up. And just, you know, people were already writing him off, where he was able to compartmentalize and say, you know what? I'm just going to go out and I'm going to be me. And for him to have this run and take the Packers to the playoffs and not only just win in the playoffs, that's really impressive.
And like in a way, that might be a little bit more impressive to me in the sense that like rocky start, got it together, and then has only gotten stronger as we've gone along, and to the point where I was at a bar last night watching the game, and it was me and 2 other people. It was a pretty empty bar. And at the other end of the bar were Chicago Bears fans. And they were screaming at each other about how the Packers cannot keep getting away with this in terms of lucking their way into like the guy at the quarterback position when Bears fans are just desperate to find that guy. And it feels like the Packers have a never-ending run of these guys in terms of the elite guys that can carry them forward.
What happens when you have a plan at the quarterback position, you know how to evaluate, and then you hit on guys, but you don't need to play them right away. So you have the luxury of developing guys through the system. I do like what you said about the way that Love plays the game in terms of finding guys who are open. It feels like there's almost a little bit of flair to how he does it. Like you got somebody running down his face and it's just super cool, flick of the arm, gets the ball out there. And I think almost to CJ's detriment at times is like he is the smoothest operator. And this goes back to when he was playing in college, but like everything feels very easy and it feels very surgical when he's playing. And so it's like there's almost a lack of flair to the efficiency that he plays with at times.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's great, right? Yeah. I mean, we're over here talking about like, you know, which one of these really young quarterbacks is like, who's a little bit cool. But it is funny because when you start to, you know, get into these conversations, like Jordan Love does kind of have a little bit of that where that you're like, this guy's got, you know, he's got a little something to him.
Yeah, and you know, you were talking about CJ and just the maturity he's showing on the field, and you know, going back to his Ohio State days, and one of the biggest questions surrounding him was just kind of his leadership off the field. Not saying that he is not a good leader, but just being a vocal leader. But the fact that he was able to kind of overcome that criticism there and being able to get the respect of the locker room as early on as a rookie, and to kind of use that to translate obviously onto the field and build that success there, that's I mean, it's pretty impressive.
My biggest criticism was that I didn't know if he was a guy who would walk in and win a locker room right away, because he doesn't have that fire in his personality necessarily. And then you heard the stories about in the offseason right after he got drafted, he would open up his home every night and invite guys over for dinner. He had a chef, he's like, I'm cooking, whoever wants to come over can come over. And I think that's how he connected and built trust. And then they saw him work, and that built even more trust. So it was a different approach, but it definitely worked for him in year one.
The Texans are also a team that like has had no identity. And CJ Stroud giving them an identity is very, very positive for them.
Well, it's no doubt that the ceiling is high for both of these young quarterbacks. And keep the votes coming in. Scan the QR code or go to playtherally.com.
Anyone?
Mike, you have a year left on your contract.
Was Mike Tomlin upset or annoyed? I can't tell after that loss. Listen, the Steelers, they have gone 7 years without a playoff win. So Najee Harris said today that they need to make an, quote, in-house adjustments. Is fair to put Mike Tomlin under the microscope, would you say?
I say yes, it is fair to a degree. Like anytime you lose, especially when your season comes to an end, I do think it's time for introspection. When you put out the stat, have not won a playoff game in 7 years, I think that is extremely startling. I think you have to understand the circumstances that they were under, where you had the end of Big Ben, he's, you know, not a very agile, mobile guy and banged up, and then after that, you get into some bad quarterbacking where you had to go through this year with Kenny Pickett, who I told everybody was not going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And then Mitch Trubisky, who we all saw was not a good quarterback in the NFL. And then Mason Rudolph, who I didn't even know he was on the Steelers roster at this point until they had to put him in the game earlier on this year. And for Mike Tomlin to take a team that was comprised of that offensively and win using basically his defense all year long, to make it to the playoffs, like, yes, I think you need to evaluate what's going on. Is it still working? Can we get better? Always a question you have to ask. Is there a better option than what we have in-house right now? But for him to put that team in that position, I don't know how many better options there are.
I think the discussion is worth having. 7 years is a long time without a playoff win, but I don't think that this year is the year to have it, because you look at that team, did anybody expect them to be here? No. You look at the quarterbacks, like you mentioned, to even get to the playoffs with that roster of quarterbacks is impressive. And I mean, you look at Mike Tomlin's greater body of work, and he is very, very good at getting a lot out of his teams in terms of the regular season. Now, you do have to have it lead somewhere in the postseason. And again, 7 years is a long time, but talk to me when the roster is there and he doesn't win the playoff game, especially going up against a Buffalo Bills team that we were talking about at the beginning of the year as being one of the better teams in the NFL and is hitting its stride.
And you hear from players across the league, and they say nothing but great things about Mike Tomlin. That's the type of guy that you want to play for here. And okay, so maybe the question isn't, do the Steelers need to move on from Mike Tomlin, but does Mike Tomlin need to move on from the Steelers? Maybe a change of scenery?
That's an interesting question. Like I might think about it. I feel like it's hard because his legacy is so tied to Pittsburgh, and he's been very good and extremely consistent, and somebody who has been reliable, and we understand what his product's going to be. I also think that you can't be, and nobody should be in any spot for entirely too long. I feel like you get into a comfort zone that way, and we should all be uncomfortable. So it would be interesting to see him out of there. I think if he gets a quarterback, a guy who he feels like he can really win with, he's probably like, nah, Pittsburgh's cool. But there's going to come a point where he might be like, let's see what else is going on out here.
I mean, at the end of the day, the clock runs out on everybody. Bill Belichick is a free agent right now, and did anybody see that coming? I mean, a few years ago? Absolutely not. You probably thought that Bill Belichick was done in New England when Bill Belichick wanted to be done in New England. So the clock runs out on everybody. I don't feel like Mike Tomlin's trying to rush out of Pittsburgh. He just wants a quarterback.
Sometimes a quarterback or not having a quarterback will run you out of a stadium.
Yeah, for sure.
With Bill Belichick.
That was Bill.
He knows it.
Jeez, all right. We're going to take a final break over here on the rally. And the Eagles fans are a crazy bunch over there, but Rob McElhaney took it to a whole new level yesterday. We'll show you exactly what happened coming up.
Guys, you know Rob McElhaney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right?
Never seen it.
And Wrexham.
Wait, are you serious?
I've never seen it.
That actually doesn't surprise me. Yesterday, he was at the Emmys, which overlapped with the Eagles playoff game. So he had to watch it on his phone. There you see him with his co-stars. And yeah, I mean, who schedules the Emmys at the same time as the playoffs? Who would do that? What do you make of this situation?
I mean, I'd do it. It's you got to watch the boys. I'll find any way that I possibly can to watch a playoff game. So I respect it. That's true fan behavior. There was one year in 2011 when the Bruins were on their Stanley Cup run. I promised my mom that I would go on a hike with her before I knew that it was going to be Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final.
Yep.
Yes.
I was listening to like one of those wind-up radios,
Sure.
and it died in the middle of the third period in a 0-0. In the middle of the 0-0 game. Actually, it died right after the Bruins scored the go-ahead goal, 1-0, but it died before the end of the game, so I had to find out the next day as to whether or not the Bruins were in the Stanley Cup Final. Luckily, I got good news, but that was a tough, like 12-plus hours not knowing.
Well, you know, that probably meant a lot to your mom. The fact that you were like, listen, I'm going to put hockey on the back burner, and I'm going to go and I'm going to spend some time with you.
I wasn't happy about it, I'll tell you that.
Well, you don't have to. She doesn't have to know that.
I feel like we have all been in a spot where we had to do something while there was a sporting event on that we wanted to watch. I went, we had a baby shower back in December. Maddie wanted to do this thing on the Sunday of college football championship weekend. So that whole Saturday ain't nothing but games on. And she was like, well, I need you to run errands for me that Saturday. And so what did I do? Well, I put my phone up in a holster in the car, and I had the games on while I was riding around doing
Don't do
Then
that
I get up and go.
That's dangerous.
Well, I
Don't do that
wasn't
at home.
staring at it, but I was able
You're
to peek at a
listening.
red light, whatever the case was. You know, I had hands free. And then when I would go into the store, I'd carry my phone in there with the games on. Fubo, shout out. It was great.
Our producer's in our ear, and he's saying, I do that too.
Thank you,
but
Michael.
don't do that at home unless you are a very good driver. But this got me thinking about people who schedule weddings at the same time of like college games. Now, I know it's hard. I know
It
it's
ain't that
hard
hard.
because when you sometimes
not.
You've got a
schedule
general
only
idea.
allows you to get married in the fall or something like that. But I remember I went to a dry wedding.
Ugh.
That was at the same
No
time as like
chance.
one of the biggest games.
I wouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
Well, let's
I'll
just say
say
a lot
again.
of people
I'll
came
give a
prepared.
little extra
We
money.
were
I'm not
tailgating
going.
in the parking lot.
Hell nah. I'm not going
Yeah,
to
my
that.
wedding gift is the fact that I'm here and I'm not
If you
watching
don't have an
these
open
games.
bar, I'm not going to your wedding. Never mind a dry wedding. Get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Disrespectful.
crazy.
Man, it
Selfish.
is wild. It is selfish. It was a great wedding besides that. Anyways, let's get to the Rallyverse, shall we? Because I think we have time for a few stops here. We got the Nuggets taking on the Sixers from Philadelphia. Who would you rather climb the Rocky Steps with? Would you rather climb the Rocky Steps or the steps at Red Rocks?
Neither. I'm not climbing any steps. No, thank you.
I feel like the steps at Red Rocks would be nicer
Scenic.
to look at. Yeah.
Fair.
Rocky Steps.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not?
You're going to play the theme music in your head as you're
Yeah,
on
and
the
then I'm going
steps?
to get a Philly cheese sandwich when I'm done.
Maybe you and Russ can race.
I'll beat him. Wouldn't
believe
be
it.
close.
You got
We
those
have
short
that video
legs.
somewhere,
Yeah, I
man.
can say
I
that.
wish we had that on camera.
I'm gone.
All right, you have to take one: Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic.
Ooh, yeah.
Jokic.
I
Jokic is
I
a
might
dog.
roll Jokic, honestly. The personality is fun for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a dog.
He's one of the best
Although
players to follow
Joel
in the
Embiid,
league.
pretty good.
All right, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We will see you tomorrow.